The Charlotte Hornets have been the talk of the town in the NBA as of recent, and I mean, it's for good reason. They've been completely on fire ever since the new year has turned over, sitting at 19-9 since January 1st, and they've just been on a roll. I mean, both the offensive end and the defensive end really have just been locked in. LaMelo, he's looked amazing. Probably the most mature and the best that he's played since he's been drafted. Brandon Miller, even still harboring his shoulder injury, playing through it, still being a dog, still being able to score at all three levels. Conkanipple, who has been one of, if not the best rookie in this class. I mean, just being able to do it all, sits down on defense, obviously has been one of the best shooters in the league this year. Miles Bridges still being able to contribute 15 plus points a game, still being able to rebound the balls, sit down on defense, and obviously Musa Diabate, who's my personal favorite on this team right now. Just a complete energy big, blocks shots, gets rebounds, dunks the ball. He's got his little Moose celebration, and I mean, this team has just been rolling. They look really good, and as they're ramping up to possibly make a playoff push right now, sitting at the 9 seed, tied with Atlanta Hawks. But I mean, they're only 2.5 games out from that 6 seed. To be honest, if I'm one of those top seeds, I'm scared. I want them to get a playoff spot because I do not want to see them in the first round. I really don't want to see this team that's been rolling on both ends of the floor. They have a 1A, they have a 2A, they have, size, they have veteran leadership. They have basically everything that you would not want to see in a young team that's hungry and confident going into the playoffs. Like I said, they've been really good since the start of the new year, but let me throw some stats at you so you don't think I'm just talking out my ass. Right now, as of the last 60 days, they are number 1 in offensive rating, number 5 in defensive rating, and number 1 in overall net rating. And obviously, like you've probably seen with their starting lineup of LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Conkanipple, Miles Bridges, and Musa Diabate, they are 19-2. Offensively over the stretch, they've been one of the best offensive rebounding teams, sitting at number 1 in the league at plus 4.9 offensive rebounding rate. They're also number 4 in the league in offensive true shooting, so they're getting a lot of good looks and they're knocking down these good looks. Defensively, like I said, on offense, they get a lot of offensive rebounds, but on the defensive end, they are not allowing other teams to get offensive rebounds. And I think this is key, especially for this team that likes to get out and run. They're being able to end possessions after one shot, and they can get out in transition, B. Mill lob, Miles Bridges lob, LaMelo for 3. I mean, it's just a lot of options that they have on that transition offense, and it really just starts with being able to get the ball right off the rim after one shot and get out. And, we're giving these players a lot of credit, and it's well deserved, but I think that we need to give Charles Lee a bit more of his flowers. He's been able to get these guys to buy in to what he wants to do on the offensive and defensive end, and especially with a guy like LaMelo, who in the media has been painted as he has to be the offense. He isn't a good defender, blah, blah. LaMelo, like I said, he's looked the best that he's looked in his career so far. You see LaMelo diving for loose balls, sitting on defense, getting rebounds. He's been a dog. And I mean, I think you have to contribute that to Charles Lee at least a little bit. I think that their relationship probably started off a little bit shaky, but as their relationship has gotten better, I think that he's given LaMelo less of a leash and let him be him, but within the system that he wants to run in Charlotte. And I mean, it's a pretty good system, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, he has a couple of sets that, kind of inspired this video. Like I said earlier, number 1 in offensive rating. I mean, yeah, they're a great transition team, but even when the game slows down and it's more of a half-court centric game, Charles Lee, he has some tricks up his sleeve and some nice sets up his sleeve. And for example, right here, we got Dallas versus Charlotte, 118 apiece, 50 seconds left. We got LaMelo at the top of the key with the ball, Conkanipple on the block, Musa Diabate on the free throw line, and Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller in each corner. Conkanipple's going to come up off a screen from Musa Diabate, and he is then going to set a ghost screen on LaMelo's man as Musa comes right behind for a screen on a short roll, which was PJ Washington in a 2-on-1 scenario, and Brandon Miller wide open in the corner. I mean, he's just not going to miss that. That is just a beautiful, beautiful set to get a wide open 3 in the late game situation. Another example right here from that game 2 nights ago against the Boston Celtics. Right off the tip, right at the start of the game, LaMelo is bringing the ball up. He's going to enter it into Miles Bridges on the left wing. LaMelo's then going to set a down screen for Musa Diabate to get the ball at the free throw line. LaMelo is then going to set a Gortat screen on his man and Moose's man, so Moose can come off and just get a free and easy dunk. When you can start a game off with a dunk, a wide open dunk like that, I mean, that is just beautiful, beautiful play design and beautiful basketball from the Charlotte Hornets and Charles Lee. I mean, I can just go on and on of sets and plays that Charles Lee has put this team into to get good looks, whether it's at the end of games, after timeouts, at the beginning of games. I mean, I think Charles Lee is secretly one of the best coaches that we have in this league. And it's not just offensively. Like I said, they are number 5 in defensive rating in the last 60 days. So whatever scheme that he's using on a given night, you know, for whatever matchup, this team is buying into what he's selling. They're buying into what he's selling. I mean, they're diving on the floor. They're playing real gritty. They're really, really physical. I think that he's the engine that gets this team going. And a lot of people will probably say that's Moussa Diabate. They probably say it's this guy, that guy. But I think you have to look at Charles Lee and you know, give him some props for bringing this team together. This team has just been so good since the new year turned over. I mean, really fun to watch. Right now, like I said, sitting at that 9 seed, only 2.5 games back from the 6 seed. And I'm really excited to see what they can do in the play-in or the playoffs. I think they'd be a scary matchup for any of these top teams, and a really scary matchup in like a 4-5 or a 3-6. I mean, this team, like, the sky's the limit. They're playing with house money. They were not expected to be this far at this point in the season, especially with starting 4-14 and all the rumors of LaMelo wanting out and, you know, resetting the rebuild and going with a core of Con Knipple and Brandon Miller. I mean, it was just so much BS at the beginning of the year. For them to be in this position right now to possibly make a playoff spot, I mean, you just have to give kudos to the entire team, Charles Lee, the front office. You just have to give complete kudos to everybody in that locker room, everybody from the starting lineup, even down to the bench, who I hadn't even mentioned yet. Obviously, you go out and acquire Kobe White 2 nights ago against the Boston Celtics. He shows why you go out and get him as opposed to sitting with Colin Sexton. I mean, he can give you 30 on any given night, and that's coming off the bench. Zion James has been really good. You know, guard's the best player, real gritty, real physical, has been able to knock down his 3-point shot this year. Ryan Kalkbrenner, he's a really, really solid backup big, rebounds the ball, blocks shots, runs the floor, you know, just a real solid NBA big. Grant Williams has been a surprise for me personally. You know, he was injured at the beginning part of the year. He comes back. He's been able to knock down a 3-point shot. Obviously, we know he's going to defend. And, I mean, he's just been a real veteran for this team, and I think that's what they needed. And I think that you can put a lot of their recent success on Grant Williams coming in and finally being able to play and, you know, kind of get these guys in line along with Charles Lee. I really like this team, you know, just kind of up and down the line. I think the only thing in the future that they will need is probably just a steady point guard to come off the bench. Obviously, they just went and got Kobe White, but I more see him as a combo guard. And I think if you can get like a steady point guard to sit beside Kobe White in that backcourt, coming off the bench, I mean, you pretty much have everything. You have shooting, you have length, you have size, you have defense, you have playmaking. I mean, this team could really be scary in this Eastern Conference. And I mean, looking at the entire Eastern Conference, it's really becoming a tough conference. Obviously, we got Boston, Detroit, New York, Cleveland just went and got James Harden. I mean, the Eastern Conference is really shaping up to be probably the toughest that it's been in years. But yeah, man, I'm just really excited to see where Charlotte ends up this year and even into the future. This is a really fun core to watch, and I hope they keep it together as long as possible. If you enjoyed this video, man, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, turn that noti bell on. Got a lot of basketball coming up. March Madness is rapidly approaching. Soon the NBA playoffs will be here. And I mean, if you love basketball content, this is definitely the place to be. It's been your boy Corey from Between 94, and I'm out.